Just because you go change your parts doesn't make you a woman.
Right.
Sorry.
You feel that?
I know that for a fact. Like, if you want me to call you a her, I will, because that's what you want. But that doesn't make you a woman just because I call you a her.
This is Timothy Madison. Timothy says that he wants to be a housewife. Says that since they're recasting, he thinks he should be a housewife and have a husband. So you don't have a husband, so that means it would be a fake gay for play husband.
So when people talk about, are trans women, my feeling is trans women are trans women. And I think if you've lived in the world as a man, with the privileges that the world accords to men, and then sort of switch gender, it's difficult for me to accept that then we can equate your experience with the experience of a woman who has lived from the beginning in the world as a woman and who has not been accorded those privileges that men are.
Losing rights with abortion, losing rights with this, losing rights with that. And then on top of all of that, we have the saucy Santanas telling us we learned womanhood from y'all. We have men that are, I don't think he's not transgender, telling us about what we started.
Who the fuck stands up for us? And us, I mean women, real women, biological women, women who were born with all the parts that you guys wish that you were. Women who were born with all the parts that you guys wish that you were.
So one thing that I enjoy about this platform I've created and growing is that it has also helped me develop a bubble of safety where there is far less colorism, misogyny, queerphobia, transphobia, all of the trash, all of it. The world is full of things that I work really hard to shelter myself from. I've also done years of work dismantling these systems within myself, also dismantling them as content for other people as well. And that obviously has grown beyond just the content I've created. It is generally in the thread of all the things that I do. So my friendships, my relationships with my family, work environments, my romantic bonds have this element in them. And I'm happy about this cute little life that I created for myself. And I'm actually living my politics. Then I see things like this on social media. And
what I mean when the transphobia just comes out, the audacity and just the arrogance for cis women to believe that they own periods, that they own womanhood. You don't. Okay, you don't own periods, you don't own womanhood. You experience both, and both are different for every person, but as a cis woman, it doesn't belong to you, so you can't gatekeep it. Like, hello?
Hello? Who the fuck is gonna stand up for us? Who the fuck stands up for us? And us, I mean women, real women, biological women, women who were born with all the parts that you guys wish that you were. When does the delusion stop? What is the difference between you and someone who has been diagnosed to be mentally insane? What's the only difference is you don't have a straitjacket on. Stop talking out your fucking ass. Wake up. How are you projecting your anger on real women? Because we are the gatekeepers. We are the gatekeepers for periods. We the only one that fucking bleed, honey. We the only ones that can give birth. We make y'all people. We make y'all. Y'all come from us. You can't be us. You will never. You're chasing something you'll never, ever get. You'll never be that.
Like, hello?
I'm reminded really quickly, there's the world that I want, and then there's the world that I live in. And in the world that I live in, you ninjas is wild. Like, y'all are saying wild and accurate things, being oppressive, and it's embarrassing. You are embarrassing me and my homegirl. This life I've created for myself keeps me safe, but my way of thinking is obviously in the minority. And that means I have to get out of my little bubble ever so often. And my work is to be a bridge. And any cis person watching this, that's your work too. So this Jess hilarious stuff happened months ago now. But when she made her inaccurate statements, it reminded me that there are many Black women, cis ones, that aren't where I am. And these bitches is harmful. And they need to be dealt with. assumption that if you are watching this video, you have accepted and know that the trans experience is a real experience. You stick up for trans people when you see them being harmed. You say their names. You retweet their GoFundmes. You even donate to their GoFundmes. You mourn the death of trans people. But I'm not sure if we are seeing the common thread in all of this here. And that common thread is that this is all reactive things. It's all in response to harm. And that means a trans person has to be harmed in order for us to do something. And it shouldn't be that way. It's not proactive. It's not preventative. We're cool with picking up the pieces after, most of us, but we're not doing enough to make sure those pieces don't fall apart in the first place. And I get it. Black women, we have complicated lives and complicated identities, and our oppression makes us believe we have zero space to give anything to anyone else, especially when most of us feel completely depleted and like we have nothing to give. We are navigating patriarchal white supremacy as well. Yet, we do not realize that the similarity of our broken pieces as cis and trans people, that they can be remedied together. The biggest thing I noticed from transphobia that I saw spill out to everyone when Jess Hilarious made her silly comment was the number of people with actual womanist, black feminist politic and theory who are still profoundly transphobic. Now, Jess and people like her, I it's kind of expected. I was not surprised. Always disappointed, but was not surprised. But there were some people who I just did not expect to still have these transphobic ideas. There are so many people who still see trans women as men. And in the same way, black men tell black women to wait until they get their liberation, then for us to get ours. That is many of our requests of trans people, specifically trans women. And that realization for me, obviously in my cis privilege, was very disappointing to see. I conducted interviews, I did lots of reading, observing, writing, editing, because I wanted something in the world that gathered us when we start slipping. This is a communal conversation, so I've reached out to many of the cis women of the mixed vixen community to get to the bottom of Black women's transphobia and transmisia. I also included in this video trans voices because they know way more than I do on the topic, like obviously. I have included my friend, Diamond Styles, trans activist, executive director of Black Trans Women Inc., and creator and host of Marsha Click Podcast. My homie Brianna Jenkins, civil rights attorney, activist, and host of Girl Down Podcast. And the new homie, hey boo, Xavier, and the first ever man on this platform. So you already know they special. They lead this conversation in this video, not me. If you want the full interviews that I have with each of them, they are available now on a Patreon. My intention with this video is to get to the bottom of the issues cis women have with trans people. How cis women can be better co-conspirators in the liberation of trans lives, and answer the question, can coalition between cis and trans people exist?
I can't sit down and have a civil conversation with a real woman. So here, but here I am. Hey,
So yes,
haters.
that is a great way to start this because I, in my ignorance and also my privilege of being a cis person, for me it was new seeing that there was a resistance to this word cis, which was a very simple word and already sounds like a word we use, cis, SIS, right? So it was just really confusing for me. Why do you think so many cis women are afraid or threatened by cis?
For me, I don't think it's about the word per se. I feel that it's about a perceived loss of power, a perceived decentering. I think with visibility, people often mistake that for access to structural power or access to systemic power. And just because it's trans folks and I want to be particular in this conversation, Black trans women and femmes, just because you've seen us more than you've ever seen us before, one doesn't mean that we are we're heavily populated in ways where we even have the physical capacity to come in and take over, because we just don't. And it doesn't mean that we have the power cis folks think that we have to change anything. We're just saying, hey, we love ourselves, we don't hate ourselves. We're a different type of woman, but we're a woman nonetheless. And I think this outrage over this cis word is a way for Black cis women to reclaim power. It's basically a way for them to leverage the privilege that they have to feign outrage and start a movement. So I don't necessarily think it's about the word. It's more about this perceived loss of power that they think that they give up by acknowledging that we too share the realm of womanhood with cis women. For those who are just resistant to the idea of the word, I really wonder, but then on the same breath, they'll be like, but I'm an ally. But are you really an ally if you're not willing to do that hard self-looking in the mirror work and really engaging how your cisness, and even though it's complex, because you still are a black woman, you might be a black heterosexual woman, but your cisgenderness, because you're not trans, that does give you some type of privilege that you're able to navigate through this world.
God, sis. So when I hear people complain about the word cis, it just feels like just a residual of the transphobia that's already there. People who have worked through, who are intentionally trying to not be transphobic. I am in community with trans women. I am friends and sisters with trans women. Women like that, I have never, ever heard them have an issue with cisgender. Secret to everybody. We know that LGBT has been around for a very long time, but for a very long time, the T was a baby T. It was a little T.
Yes.
And just to give you some historical context, and just that you can resonate with your memory, when we asked presidents, think of any presidential candidate before 2016, when we asked them, when we needed to know if they were down for the LGBT people, what do we ask them? About gay marriage, right? Yes. Everybody was like, what is your stance on gay marriage? Because that was the mainstream issue for the LGBT, which we affectionately, shadily call gay ink. So in those kind of conversations, to know if you was down with us, we asked the presidents or the candidates, what's your position on gay marriage? Once gay marriage passed, do you remember what year that was? 2015. That was Oberfeld. When that passed in 2015, they needed a new frontier, y'all. And there was only one baby. Now, this is me shading the beat. But there was only one baby. There was only one baby letter. And I shade the beat because they the biggest fucking group anyway. So y'all get the love. The T was such a baby T that now that is the new frontier, y'all. So after 2015, what do we start seeing happen politically, nationally, socially come to the fore? Trans issues. We start hearing about bathroom bills. Gavin Grimm in, I don't know, I think it's North Carolina. I can't remember. Don't quote me on that. But his name is Gavin Grimm. Went all the way up to the Supreme Court to try to get bathrooms, the issue bill passed to be able to go to the bathroom. A trans man. Y'all love to act like it's just trans women out here doing the bathroom. But trans men doing that. And then we start hearing these kind of conversations. We get the amazing Laverne Cox on the Time magazine tipping point. That's 2014. So we see how these things are shifting because they knew they were forward thinking. This is about to be the new issue. So we get to 2016 election campaign going all the way up to Hillary and Trump. We know the negative that happened. But in the conversation, it was a whole ass first time that we start hearing them say transgender. So we're hearing new language, we're hearing new issues, we're having this, it's a new frontier, a new battle. So I say all of that to say we are coming into a space where the T is a big major thing. So any language, anything that has already been worked on and established is gonna come to the fore, to the main political stage, main cultural discourse. That is what's gonna happen. And so cisgender being one of those things, it has been here. It has been being used. Trans people did not make it up. It's just something that is now coming to the forefront because we are needing it in these discourses that we are having on the larger scale. This is an example I was thinking about earlier. Let me say this as well. Okay. So I keep hearing, because it's kind of in line with the cisgender stuff. I keep hearing they're changing all the language. Why can't I say I'm a mother? Why can't I say I'm a woman? They're erasing me. Why can't I say breastfeeding? And why are y'all trying to make me say chest feeding? And da 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 da. And you know how silly that sounds to me. I have seen women out and about, and honey, they spill some drink on their chest, and they say, "Oh my God, I just spilled all over my chest." You are not calling your chest breast. You are calling it using chest interchangeably with breast is really common. Yeah, really common. So the fact that you are making a big deal about shifting your language to chest feeding when you do that anyway, that is transphobia. You don't have a problem with the language because you use the language already. That's just what it is. It is you are a transphobe and you do not want to make the adjustment to include trans men in the conversation, to include non-binary trans people in the conversation, because you want to hate trans women so much and you want to make sure you are not what I am. I give birth, I breastfeed. You want to be this juggernaut of cis womanhood. This is the womanhood. This is mine. I get it. Even y'all saying we're doing that. We're trying to conquer. No, conquer y'all. That is masculine energy. If we want to go there, you are trying to do this. This is mine. This is my territory. Great, and you can. We already talked about that in the past. Great, you can. But understand that is bullshit. You use this language. You just don't want to switch over to the trans stuff.
Every cis woman I spoke to about the term cis and what they are protecting if we stop using that word cis had no clear answer. They mostly saw it as a slur. This did make me wonder, do you subconsciously think the word trans is a slur if you equate cis to a slur? What does cisness even have to do with womanhood? So those are some of the questions that I explored for this part of the video. Another thing that stood out was many of the cis individuals I talked to associated so much of Black women's existence with pain, suffering, neglect, and loss, and feel that trans women haven't earned their spot. So that brings me to another question. If those are the parameters you're setting for your entryway into womanhood, trans women have definitely earned their spot. They experience unequal pay, medical racism, intimate partner violence, SA, murder, just like us.
Two things that are the dumbest points is I want to be, anytime a cis woman says, y'all want to be me, stupid. That's stupid.
It's not true.
Anytime a trans woman says, they're just jealous of us, stupid. Those two statements from both of those sides is stupid. Nobody is jealous of you, bitch. Nobody is jealous. Nobody cares. These are battles we are all going through. Nobody is jealous. That is not the case. Nobody wants to be you, bitch. Nobody. Even if I want to be a woman, I don't want to be you. You are broke and dealing with stuff that I'm dealing with at the same time. It's not you. I have never met a woman that I want to be. Actually, I want to say this. And this is shady. This may be shady too. But listen, most of the time, the people that I want to be, they got stuff that I don't got. So, and this might be some classes, desirability shit. It's a beautiful woman.
Mm-hmm.
It is a rich woman. It is a established woman who got shit going on that I want. Most chicks that are got that, I don't really be having no problems with. It is the ones who you don't have the look that I like. You don't got the coins that I like. You don't got all of these things that you don't have none of that. All you got is your pussy, and it ain't got you nowhere because you got 3 baby daddies. And I don't want them. Baby daddies don't do nothing.
But you know what I'm hearing? They really don't. You know what I'm hearing? Is that you want access. Like all of those things you said
what it is.
Were different levels of access. So the beauty, access, the money, access. That's all that is. But you don't want to.
And you want that too. You get what I'm saying? You want to be them bitches with access too, baby girl.
Exactly. And
it's not about our identity. It's about having access to that. The good shit, the luxury life, the soft life. I look at just I'm jealous of Jackie Aina. I want to be in the White House with gold knobs and putting apples and orange juices in order and organization in the refrigerator, bitch. I want to be that. Yes. That bitch can say, I want to be her.
I want to be her too, actually. Okay? I want to be her too. The fuck?
I want to have that kind of level of care where all I'm doing is videos organizing juices and apples and nuts in my freezer. That's what I want to do. I want to have the time to iron my linens, to steam my sheets. That's it.
While doing all my research and getting information for this video, I've also learned that many Black women can't quite define womanhood. It seems very elusive. Like, how do you define Black womanhood outside of white supremacist patriarchal capitalism? How do you define Black womanhood outside of the way the world treats us? I would love to know your answer to that. If you have an answer to that, please let me know. Put it in the comments because I'm really, really, really curious about that. It does seem as though without those factors, we have a really tough time defining Black womanhood. Because of that, I had another thought, right? And that thought is, what if we just eliminated gender altogether? Okay. Come, follow me. So the first time I ever heard of that, I was taken aback. I was, cause, like, what? You know? I'm all for non-binary people existing, but that means now I can't be a woman? That's what that means now? Say what now? The first time I saw that idea was when I started following Deshaun Harrison on, and the reaction that I had, the one that I just presented, was a very cis reaction for me to have to that. Even with all the work that I've done to dismantle things, that idea challenged me a little bit. And I watch other cis women on their journeys challenged by these kinds of ideas as well. And I empathize, yet I need for us to understand that our idea of gender has to be shaken up a bit, has to be interrogated. Like, think about it. Who told you what Black womanhood is to begin with?
So you spoke about like being like girlhood or womanhood and how it's just difficult to do or difficult to perform. It makes me think of like just gender in general. Like how harmful do you think the construct of gender is?
It's very harmful. If you look at the historical connotations that sex and gender have had and what rights people were given, like someone was just saying, we are just 2 to 3 generations removed from women not having the right to own a bank account. And in a lot of places, this is still the truth, whether or not legally it's enforced that way. This is still true, where you have child marriages fucking up here, especially between a young girl and an older man, and it's legal. So women are objects in this world, and that's an unfortunate truth for a lot of people, that they're not people, just because they exist, they're a thing to operate in a society in a certain function. So I'd say gender is extremely harmful in the sense that it's very limiting. Like I've seen people not want to achieve a certain personal success because they tell themselves this story, well, I'm a girl, so I shouldn't do this. And I'm like, what does you being a girl have to do with the fact that you have a capacity to understand electronics and, you know, gizmos and stuff? What does your vagina have to do with that? Absolutely nothing. But you will have people with penises trying to make you believe that your genitals are somehow a measurement of your capacity to do things, and to be a person. So, and they will even use oppression for generations to prove that point. Like, oh, look, you can't walk. It's like, yeah, you've been beating people's kneecaps since they came out the womb. I think that's is a correlation here. I don't know. I'm speaking from the perspective of a non-male person. I think gender has been very limiting. It's very limiting. And then, like you said,
yeah,
well, I think it
it
is.
is. No, I can agree. I can definitely agree. Even being a cis person, it's been very limiting for me and like the things I'm into. Like I'm into sports, but I'm also like femme, and you know, like just all of this stuff that gender says is not supposed to be. Like, why are you playing with Legos, but you also like doing hair? You know, just.
Trans men have always existed, which I think is an obvious thought, but many people aren't aware because trans misogyny has made trans women the focal point of the fight for trans rights and existence. I remember the first time I noticed trans misogyny and trans men erasure sit parallel in the common media discourse about trans people. Coincidentally, it was also about periods and who has them. And let's be dead ass, I have yet to meet anyone who likes having a period, and I have yet to meet a trans woman who wants a period. Like, but yeah, whatever. So in 2019, Always decided to remove their Venus symbol, which symbolizes females, from its product to include non-binary people and trans men. I remember social media being a hot mess and everyone coming for trans women defending the change, and I'm just like, huh? Trans women don't care about no periods? Like, why are you in this? I was so confused. I was just not confused. My other question is, why are trans men quiet? Like, when this is for them, and why are they leaving trans women to go to war? The fuck is happening? But I minded my cis business, corrected people I know personally on the matter, and I moved on. History repeated itself again in this just hilarious viral video because for some reason people are obsessed with periods. I hate them shits, but okay, y'all want to be obsessed. Fine. Jess was responding to a purposely harmful edited video from a trans TikToker, Blessing Rose. Blessing Rose states that this video is actually 2 years old, and Libs of TikTok, which is a very harmful account, took her video, edited it, and ran with it to be transphobic and to get people upset and riled up and whatever, leaving out that she was addressing trans men and non-binary periods, having space in the period conversation, and went further saying cis women don't own womanhood. The clip has actually resurfaced many times. There's been many response articles to this clip, but Jess's response seems to be the biggest backlash of this 2-year-old video. So here's what went down if you do not know what happened, or maybe you don't remember because it was a while ago. So the blog on site used this Lives of TikTok video and posted it on their Instagram. And then Jess stitched it with her ignorant response. And I just want to say that the on-site blog and Lives of TikTok, to me, did not get enough smoke for this harm, this transphobic harm that they cause. They create this transphobic harm that they cause by creating this harmful transphobic video and then just posting it with no context and not the full context of what was happening here. This is also why I do not care for short form content. It's making y'all stupid. And it's also why I don't follow any of those kind of blog sites. They are extremely toxic and transphobic and harmful. And you don't even need my follow, my like, my view. You don't need none of that shit from me. They're purposely doing stuff like this because Instagram has a carousel option. People be making infographics out the wazoo. You could do something that has more context and information, but you choose not to because you want clicks. And that's why I don't mess with those kind of sites. Okay. Ran over. So the other thing that was blatant, again, in this whole moment, trans men's erasure. Once again, I saw everyone mad at trans women. trans women frantically reacting and asserting their existence, which I get it, educating, and not much from trans men. It was giving confusion again. But this time around, I made sure to talk to trans men and not also erase them in my conclusion of what was happening and not make foolish sense assumptions. So we are about midway through this video, and if you're still watching this, that tells me that you are interested in dismantling transphobia for yourself and in communities that you're a part of. And I love that for you. As a gesture to the trans people watching this video, let's let them know that we are committed to doing this work. And in the comments, type Black Trans Lives Matter.
Do you think there is a world where there is like less trans men erasure, and like how do you think that happens?
I mean, I think a part of it is no, because we don't want to be recognized. We know the more you're recognized, the more you become a target. Just like the more conversations about trans people come up, the more we become targets in public, in actual public situation, in real life situations. Like I remember before anybody knew what trans was, I could just go and do shit. Nobody had a conversation with me about it because they didn't have a language to even, get angry about. But now it's like everybody wants to insert their 2 cents. I'm going to get my medication. This lady want to give me her opinion. I'm just trying to exist and people got opinions now. And I'm like, I miss when this wasn't a topic. I miss when I could just sneak in and out of whatever bathroom I could get into and just have a fucking day for myself. Now we got to have fucking arguments about where we pissing, So like I've been using the men's restroom since I was in high school. I've stopped using the women's restroom a long time ago because it was safer. Like literally women were threatening to like harm me physically. So this whole conversation we always have in a black and white situation where usually the trans woman is the example, but trans men just tend to have a different type of risk. And nobody wants to talk about what that risk is because then you have to talk about desirability in men, in cis men. Nobody wants to talk honestly about cis men behaviors and their predatory behaviors and tactics, because then you would have to admit that more than 40 to 50% of the motherfucking neighborhood is on that shit. They're predators, they're groomers. They are at the very least willing to assault a young person to correctively rape them, excuse my language. Because I started experiencing this before I was 13 years old, guys trying to correct my sexuality. And I personally didn't have one at that point. I didn't have a sexuality. I had very childish attractions, but I didn't have a sexuality. But they're projecting. They definitely had a sexuality at those ages, and they were acting on it. So they think anybody else in that realm of presentation is also doing the same thing. And they know that is predatory. So they try to be the good guys in this situation and prevent us from thriving. But they know realistically, they're just trying to keep more real estate for themselves. That's all it is. But I think the erasure is going to continue, and I think a part of it is we want it to continue. Please forget it. As long as my community knows me, these cis motherfuckers having parades for me. I don't need that much shit from them, because most of my care can be summed up with typical cis person's care. There's not much about me physically that's different from other people.
So this is the best analogy that I have come up with that I talked to my friends about it. Think about the natural hair movement.
Okay.
Usually when you hear conversations that are powerful and forward thinking about the natural hair in the past 10 years, about it going forward and how we should be free to have our curls out, we should be free from the whatever, we should have our 4C hair out, we should have all these powerful conversations that has happened in the past 15 years with the hair movement.
Yes.
That conversation has been dominated by women. It has allowed Crown Acts to be signed that men benefit from.
Yes.
It has allowed men to have a certain level of freedom about their naps, freedom about their dreads, freedom about, look, we would not see this big growth of freeform locks. Jay-Z would not have freeform locks right now if black women in the past 15 years hasn't made natural hair acceptable.
I think that's a lace front, but
right. So he wouldn't be able to wear a lace front or his own head on this level if it wasn't for the work that we had laid down in these conversations about hair. So That's the analogy that I hear about
That's a
this
good
trans
one.
shit.
That's a good one.
They can sit back and be quiet. There's going to be some amazing men like a Teak, a Caden Coleman. They're gonna. This is a hustle for them, so they gonna come and talk about what needs to be talked about. We're gonna have them token certain people that's gonna always say something, but it is the work of the women. It is the stripe and the burden. It is on our back to do this labor, to do it because of the privilege that comes with being a man, that they can sit back and we be the laborers. Yes, they have the privilege of being partnered. And this, I don't want to say all of them is partnered, but it's very common, more common than trans women, for them to be in partnership with cis women. They can be partners. There are certain things. This is not saying they don't have no problem, but it's certain things, certain freedoms that they got to admit. If we admit that male privilege exists or man privilege exists, if you're going from being seen as a woman or a girl and you're going into manhood, you are going into privilege. You are going into privilege. That's just what it is. Is there some residual that may happen? Absolutely. So because they're going into this privilege, I feel like some of them have the luxury of not having to be involved in these conversations. Some of them have the luxury, just like black men, I have the luxury where I don't have to, I can either shave my head off. I ain't got to really talk about black hair like that because it don't affect me. It don't affect my desirability. It doesn't affect me in the same way. Yes, if you have all these amazing conversations, is it going to make me free as well to do whatever I want with my hair? Absolutely. And so, that's my own personal opinion. I feel like they don't have to be as verbal because it doesn't affect them as much. Especially these conversations around gatekeeping periods. And how triggering is that kind of conversation for a trans man?
Yeah. So
and let's look at it outside of that as well. Do I want to come and defend about a period that has given me shame as a man? Well, do I want to come in that conversation?
That is true. Yeah.
So you get what I'm saying? Do I want to have that conversation? Should I? Yes, baby, we out here battling. We getting our necks chopped off because we're having these conversations because we're using inclusive language to include you.
Yeah.
I think it is a part of their responsibility, but I also understand why. Child, do I want to have this conversation? Child, no. I don't care. Let them. I'm over here living my man life. I don't care about that damn period. They care about it clearly. So I get it, but it also is frustrating as a trans woman.
The most disrespected person in America is the black woman. The most unprotected person in America is the black woman. The most neglected person in America is the black woman. And as Muslims, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us to respect our women and to protect our women. And then the only time a Muslim really gets real violent is when someone goes to molest his woman. We will kill you for our woman.
So we love this little Malcolm X clip. Like, I don't know a black person who don't. And I get it. But most of us have not seen the whole speech that snippet came from. Because most of us heard that snippet because Beyonce. Let's be dead ass, right? I've actually watched that entire speech. There was a period in my life where I was obsessed with watching speeches. Don't ask. That speech that Malcolm X did in 1962 was actually a speech in reaction to a black man, Nation of Islam member, being murdered by the police in LA. Although that snippet is about protecting black women, the whole speech was mostly about black men. Part of the work they're supposed to be doing is protecting us. But that whole speech was not about us. Malcolm X never quite specifies in his speech who black women need protection from. And my assumption based on what the totality of the speech was about the protection that black women need from white supremacy and those white supremacist systems. And although still the clip is cute, he was probably only referring to a particular type of black woman, which I'm going to just leave to the imagination because Malcolm isn't here to speak for himself. And I'm not going to front. I love hearing a black man say he'll protect me. And I like hearing a black man acknowledge that they know that harm is happening and they want to do something about it. Especially because there are not so many that do. When I think about my life, I have always been protected. Black men have protected me. Black women have protected me. Black people have protected me my whole life. Even with all that protection I had access to, I have still experienced extreme amounts of harm. I was recently featured in an amazing video addressing this by the new homie Herbie, hey boo, titled Protect Black Bitches, where he goes into this idea of protection further. It's an amazing video. It's in the description box below. So, okay, why am I talking about Malcolm X? Honestly, because he's dead. but also because I believe we need to take his thoughts further than just an acknowledgement of our need for protection and push to request and tell people to stop harming us. Black women, specifically cis Black women, have attached ourselves to this request for protection without fully holding accountable who is inflicting the harm and who we need protection from. It is not trans people killing us. It is not trans people essaying us and shooting us in the foot. It is cis men. It is the system of patriarchy you need to direct your anger and fears towards. That is what is harming you, erasing you, and what you actually need protection from.
I think, like I said, I think it's an issue with them just being afraid of what, and again, I apologize, but being afraid of people whom they view as male, what they will do and what they had the capacity to do, right? Because you were saying, like in the beginning, you were saying like a lot of trans men, we just be minding our business, and I have to tell people, and this is a trigger warning, I say, because we're constantly worried about rape as retaliation. That's literally 100% of what drives us in the way that we move and navigate, because more likely we've already experienced it. So, and that's always a way they fix you and fix your behavior and train you to submit. So that's something that's always at the back of our mind. So I understand for cis women, that is also a thought in the back of their mind. And they're thinking, if I have to share spaces with people who have penises, it's going to be a problem. And so they're trying to keep you out even on a linguistic level, because the language does have power. Language does connect or separate you. And we know that we can get people killed just off words alone. So, and me coming from the trans community, I'm very aware of that. A few words can have people killing you at a gas station because you're dancing, because you don't present a certain type of behavior. So it's just, I think the main issue just comes down to women lacking respect, regardless if they're cis or trans. Women, period, lacking respect, so that when they do have these conversations, they kind of can't focus on academia because they're really thinking about how these words are connected to how they exist in the world. Like I said, that's why I think a lot of the argument are about trans women, because they're just worried that someone's going to perform femininity and that true nature is going to come out. That feral, primal behavior that we attribute with males because of what we've experienced our entire lives.
Yes.
Like, it's not unfounded, but it is misplaced.
Yeah. That's what it is, a displacement of that. Like,
because if they was really holding dudes responsible, they would literally have to look in their personal lives. They would have to look at the people that they show up with at the dinner table every day and admit that man is not just a problem, he's a fucking problem.
And this is a complex conversation because we refuse to not acknowledge the different types of women. There are cis women, there are trans women, there are intersex women. Some cis women are inherently afraid of penises. And some preoperative trans women or non-operative trans women that don't want gender confirmation service, we are proud to have our penises. But just because we have male anatomy, it doesn't make us inherently like sexual or inherently trying to conquest females. And the vibe that I get is, a lot of cis women, the fact that you have a penis, that means you have the potential to be a rapist, and that means you can't be in space with us because you could rape us. Like, and that's the feeling I get. And I know the conversation is complex. The answer is because I didn't have a girlhood. I am a woman, but I didn't have a girlhood. And I can sense, because having a girlhood, cis girls are taught to look at penises a different way, and the harm is real. But I think that's another layer that, because I don't care what you do, you got breasts, so you look like a woman. Because you are a person that has a penis, that inherently makes you dangerous. And I see the fear, or I see the justification of like penis equals man equals rapist equals kill it, jail it, and stuff like that. And I really think we have to put it on the table and just expound on it. But again, we could talk about that later. But I just wanted to.
Brianna spitting. Brianna is spitting. So I never thought of this. How patriarchy has framed our thoughts around a D. Don't have a D. So it was very insightful to connect patriarchal power and its connection to the D. The phallic has been so central to patriarchy in a lot of our relationships to sex. Most of us only see it as something that functions for sex or something that causes harm. And that mixed with transphobia has many cis women scared. But again, let me repeat, cis men use the D to harm us statistically, not trans women. The sexual deviance attached to the D because of patriarchy is a valid fear. The system of patriarchy is so efficiently designed that a man doesn't have to dress as a woman to sneak in a bathroom and harm you. A man could bash you in your face with a brick in the middle of the street with an audience. Your injury go viral and no one will protect you. And even worse, no one will believe you. Patriarchy harms everyone. Nobody gets safe from it. And the harm escalates the more your identity deviates from that system. Cis people, we have more access than trans people. Our cis existence allows us unearned access. Yet, we still have many intersections, specifically with trans women, because we're both women. Black, cisgender, and transgender women share some intersections in oppression due to our race and gender. Both groups experience disproportionately higher rates of housing insecurity, police violence, under and unemployment due to discrimination based on our perceived gender and race. Another huge thing is that both of us are uniquely singled out for criminalization by the police.
It's sometimes for us, it just gets tiring. And it's this is why also is so silly and frustrating to me, because as a Black woman in community with other Black women, I am having some of the same conversations that we are having. I am not some alien thing that's only dealing with my issue. Is there another intersection? Absolutely. But when it comes to conversations that Black women are having, I have those same conversations. Think about the conversation about being too masculine. You think I'm not having that conversation with men that I'm dating? And don't that shit get tiring? And no matter how we explain it or how much we kind of push back, it's the same conversation. Who is paying for dates? Who is getting a plate made? These same silly ass kind of conversations are coming to me as well. So I understand. And I know that y'all understand the frustration of having to have the same conversation, especially a 101 conversation. We're talking about a very low level, the low vibrational plate of conversation. Also, we date most of the time. We date the same people. I know y'all don't.
A lot of the time. A lot of the times. Okay, I've learned so much from you, Diamond. A lot of the times.
A lot of the times. I know, I don't know what to call it. We might need some language around that. But I know that the men got y'all food and thinking it's similar to fat girls. You know how they be acting like they don't like fat girls, but fat girls is out here getting it ate up like the first plate of a cookout. Look, this is what it is. It's not saying that the desirability politics don't exist, but they don't exist to me in the extremes that people want to make them out to be. I am a plus size Black trans woman, and I being thick ain't stopped me from getting to no man, or a man trying to marry me. I done been married. A man trying to wife me up. A man trying to wine and dine me, pay bills. I done had all of it. It ain't never stopped. Listen, I want you to understand the same thing is with trans women. Men like trans women. That's just what it is.
Yep.
There can be a debate about their own sexuality and their identity. We can talk about that. That's a whole other conversation. But we out here getting niggas just like you get niggas. And so if we are getting the same niggas, we're going to have the same problems. We're going to have the same problems of abuse. We're going to have the same problems of getting introduced to addiction, because most women are introduced to drugs through
a partner. A
That's
male partner,
a male partner. So listen, that is going to be something where we follow line. So when it comes to intimate partner homicide and violence, I just did a database of trans women's murders with Insider, one of the most comprehensive of its time. When I did that, what I learned is that, look, socioeconomic stuff leads to our deaths, cis women or trans women. And so if we are in situations where we got these toxic men and we can't get out of them because we don't have the financial or the help, the resources, the infrastructure to help us out of these situations, we are highly likely to die or be murdered, die, killed by our partners. And so in that regard, that is something where our situations align, and it has nothing to do with us deceiving. It has nothing to do with us being too masculine, being too loud, being too attitudey. It has nothing to do with that. Like, look, we black women, and that's just what's gonna happen. We gonna buck up against the system because we don't have no choice, because the system will kill us if we do not buck up against it. And so that's patriarchy, that's racism, that's whatever it is. That's what's gonna happen. And so therefore, they're gonna blame it on attitudes. They'll blame it on masculinity and aggression and blah blah blah. It's really just defense. And sometimes we are going to be murdered, and that is what we are all up against. That is what's harming us. Racism, patriarchy, white supremacy, that is what's harming us. That is what we have in common. It is.
So this is the section right here. I'm about to get in that ass, okay? The problem with allies is that allyship has been antiquated. Like, that whole term is late at this point. The practice of a lot of our allyship seems to just be educating ourselves, spitting out some talking points online, and then, that's it. This is what a lot of our allyship looks like.
I just want to say I'm part of the LGBTQ community, and this is my best friend, Valentina. She's an ally. Talk, Valentina.
Ally. Just basic. Transphobia is bad. Don't do it. You post some cute tweets online, and that seems to be it. And we haven't been about that action. What are you doing in your personal life that makes life better for trans people?
So, cis women, I feel like another element is create authentic, deep relationships with trans women. Like, find one that you like, that you can be friends with in your local area. Have good conversations. She is not going to have the same mindset as Diamond Style. She is not going to have the same mindset as Breon Jenkins or Xavier. We are going to be different because we're not a monolith, just like you in your demographics. We're not a monolith. But at least when you have a deeper connection with multiple, try to start with one. But if you get a deeper connection with multiple, they all can enrich what you learn about trans people. That is one of the key markers of how people become accepting of anybody. Gayness, anybody having deep personal relationships with somebody in that group.
Definitely. And so
build those authentic relationships. No, I'm not talking about, honey, can I just ask you some training questions? No. It's about authentic relationship. What about what's going on in their life that don't have nothing to do with their identity? Learn about them as a person.
I really want you to think deeply about that. I urge anyone watching this, especially if you're not trans, to share this video because the work is necessary. We, as the accomplices and co-conspirators, I'll get into a moment later why I prefer those terms, for trans people, and also the privileged people, are the bridge for getting rid of a lot of the ignorance. We read the books, we follow the activists on social media, and have the flags in our bio. But when we say things to people in our community like, if you're transphobic, I'm cutting you off, to problematic cis people, how do they learn not to be transphobic or transmissive? I know that I wasn't in this politics space I'm in now about gender since birth. And it took a process, it took growth, it took community. Who I am is the work of many people. And that doesn't happen if we, the people with the juice, are cutting people off and not allowing them to kind of be ignorantly safe around us so that they can eventually get to where we are. That's how using your privilege works, boo. I remember years ago, I tweeted how I was on a phone with someone I was dating at the time. And we were on the phone for like 4 hours talking about trans lives, how men are attracted to trans women, how trans women are not tricking them, and how many trans women are murdered by their partners. That trans women aren't the only trans people because trans men exist, etc., etc., etc. And I remember getting so many replies to that tweet from cis women who were like, couldn't be me. Couldn't be me. You know, black women love a good couldn't be me. You better than me. You know, black women love that shit. And I'm just thinking like, isn't this what I'm supposed to be doing? And I'm sure by the end of that relationship, he learned so much. I bet that took some label off of whatever trans person he's eventually met at some point in his life. Isn't that the same kind of shit y'all was yelling at white people to do at the Thanksgiving table? Remember y'all was telling everybody to check their racist uncle at the table and force him to learn and give him the tools because we can't stop racism if we let these old racist people just continue to think that way. Apply that here for black trans people. And I'm not judging because my approach to dismantling white supremacy and white supremacist system has been working and centering black people. And I don't do anything to change the minds of white people. They're not my center focus. And I've been able to work in that way because there's so many black people who's already doing that, who's already talking to white people and sitting across the table with white people to tell them that racism ain't the thing. There's already black people doing that. So I don't have to do that. And that strategy for dismantling white supremacist systems has worked and has been helpful. I know now that a different process has to take place for trans liberation. I also had to realize that because of the way privilege and access work, creating a better world for trans people makes a better world for me. Like, think about it. If a trans woman walks the streets emotionally and physically safe, imagine what that provides for your cis ass. It is actually us, the cis woman, with power here. And I know that that's rare, that there is any space where a black woman has power, but in this instance, we do. We have the most power in a dynamic between cis and trans people. I hugely empathize because I did this myself too, and I am also a black woman. Somehow, some way, we have somehow pathologize ourselves as needing the most protection as black women and are stuck on that being our story when many other black people are actually less protected than cis black women. And this is a huge instance where that is the case, and we got to get over ourselves. Cancel culture, I know, on a societal level, does not exist, but on a personal level, it does. Many of us will simply dismiss people out of our lives because they're ignorantly transphobic, rather than do the work to help them dismantle their transphobia. We've all said it. I've said it myself. I'm not dating someone who's transphobic. I'm not having friends who are transphobic. But now I'm realizing, what does that do to help trans people? Who are these ignorant people supposed to learn from without the expense of their thoughts and ignorance harming another trans person? This is why that term ally doesn't mean much. It doesn't require any work. So earlier I mentioned the terms accomplice and co-conspirators. I'm just going real quick what that is. So an accomplice or a co-conspirator are some other terms people use in the social justice space to show support to marginalized groups. In the context of social justice and activism, the term ally is often used to describe individuals or groups that support and advocate for marginalized communities or cause. An ally is someone who is not directly part of the particular marginalized group, but actively works to promote inclusivity, equality, and justice for that group. Terms like accomplice and co-conspirators might be used in a metaphorical sense within social justice discussions to emphasize active involvement in challenging systemic issues. Some examples of that would be some activists may use these terms to convey a deeper level of commitment and solidarity in the fight against injustice. The intention is to emphasize not just passive support, but active, engage, collaboration. Ally to me has too much of a positive connotation. It doesn't do enough because I want to disrupt. Like, I want to fuck shit up. Accomplice, co-conspirator highlight the need for sustained and committed action. I actually prefer co-conspirator because it sounds sexier. Like, I'm about that smoke as a co-conspirator. Gang, gang. How do you actively live as a co-conspirator? Commit to listening and learning. Sometimes we gotta shut up. You're never gonna know it all, and that's fine. You're not a part of that group, so you're not gonna know it all. Your privilege will not make things easy for you to see. So sometimes you gotta sit down and shut up and just listen. You have to sacrifice your own privilege and power. If you're not giving something up, you ain't doing nothing. You also have to let go of power while using the privilege. So what that looks like is inviting trans people to lead. They got the keys to this. Let them lead it. Work alongside people of the trans community. How are you supporting a community and you don't know a trans person? How are you supporting a community and you have not interacted with that community? You create content, platform a trans person so their voices reaches new cis eyes. You do a coat drive for the winter. You better make sure trans people get some coats. You do a musical, you are a producer, you whatever work that you do, you get some trans people in that door. Those are some simple ways to start, but it's important to remember that all trans people want is access. And we, even as marginalized as you are as a cis Black woman, you have access. Give them some. So, back to my original question. Can trans and cis coalition exist? Of course it can. I've experienced it in my own life and am happy that trans people feel some form of safety around me. Like, there's no way I could have created this video if I hadn't done the work on my own dismantling transphobia and educating myself and to not be a raging cis fucking problem. And I'm grateful for people like Diamond, Brianna, and Xavier for participating in work like this. Forever grateful. Because of the heightened conversation around trans lives, the media kind of has people believing that like trans people are taking over. Trans people are not a large amount of the population. I believe they're 1% of the American population. There are way more cis people than trans people. Just because of that mere number, there's no way a trans person can take anything from you. Also, with those numbers, it is important that we, co-conspirators, Black cis women with the juice, educate the Jess Hilariouses in our lives so that those people can stop being ignorantly embarrassing. I do have a few more things going through my mind as I close this video. There's so much to be said, and this video it would never be enough. So I encourage you to continue the work. Follow the work of Diamond, Brianna, and Zay. I will have all of their social media available in the D-Box. Also, links to Diamond and Brianna's podcast in the D-Box. Dismantle cis patriarchy and confront those feelings you have with it. Understand how power dynamics between cis and trans women means that cis women are harmful. We cause harm to trans folks, whether we know it or not. Trans men exist, and their safety and well-being are just as important as trans women. And we gotta step up our advocacy. Like, we gotta step our game up. It's pretty damn obvious we're not doing enough. And the most important thing I want you to take away from this video is liberation is a system that trickles up. If trans people have access to fair wages, medical care, housing, physical and emotional safety, then it's a guarantee that your cis ass will too. Liberating a trans person also liberates you. Thank you so much for reaching the end of this video. Y'all know how I do. If you reach the end of the video, I want you to put a rainbow emoji in the comments. Thank you to my patrons for the financial sustainability for this platform. And always remember, you are a bad bitch. You are enough. Stay fly. I will see you in the next video.